I wanted to show you examples from the Butkus collection, the Hanna Butkus collection, of extraordinary, what I call works of art. Many of them based upon actual paintings and other statues and works of art, and others simply sculpted at the time and with such extraordinary work and detail. And remember what I was talking to you about before, that how they were modeled in pieces, really, like head and torso, and then arms attached, so you could have slightly different poses. When you have pieces that have applied what is known as the Dresden lace or flowers, I mean, all of that was done individually. I'm going to show you an example with jewels in her hair and birds on her, posed in her head. These all pieces were added later on. So much work went into these. I know these manufacturers were looking for another profit center when they did their work during this scant 25-year period making these pieces, but I don't see how they could have with the amount of work that went into these. It's unbelievable. On my right, two beautiful pieces that I like, and I kept looking at these, and I said, I know they're a painting. I can't think of what. The closest I've come up to it, that Travis, my art director, said, Florence, they look like the Vermeer paintings, and yes, they do. And so not any particular painting that I can put my finger on, but certainly the style of person that Vermeer presented in his very famous Flemish paintings. Now, at first glance, these two girls look just alike because they both have their head posed forward in that kind of demure, shy way. But I want you to pay attention to their hands. This one, her hands posed outward, and actually the one hand cupped slightly, so she could be holding something if you wanted to style her that way in making her design pincushion base. And notice again that her hand is below the base of her frame. So it had to be have a particular piece. Maybe the hand would have been resting on the half doll skirt. The same thing is true here. Her hands are far below, her waist ends here, and her hands are extending here. So she obviously was designed to be on a higher piece. Now, when I turn them to the side, you've been looking at their faces probably. When I turn them to the side, notice the difference in the hairstyles. One with much more attention to the ringlet curls onto the face and a more defined double top knot, and the other with short little ringlet curls and a tiny little top knot. So, two variations of rare half dolls that I think are exquisite works of art. I'm going to move these off so I can move something else up to show you. I have two half dolls here that are basically of the same genre, and they are, I call them the wild bonnet ladies, and that they are. Look at these bonnets, and I'm going to turn them around. Notice that their arms are extended. Collectors have always said one of the value points of them are arms away from the body. Not because that sculpture was so much better than something where the hands might be touching the body, but because the sculpting detail was so difficult. Again, the arms were modeled separately and put on. And when I turn them around now, look at, you think at first they're, well, two bonnet ladies, but no, look at how their bonnets are totally different. Just wild exaggeration. Plumes and feathers and streamers. I mean, you talk about the ladies do lunch. These ladies were out to do lunch. One outdoing the other in the king's court. Ringlet curls onto the back, the other with very voluminous gray hair. Now, look here. Talk about rarity of size. This is an extraordinary one. You will look at half dolls for 20 years and you might find one or two that would be of this size. So extraordinarily rare, perhaps designed as an exhibition model. We don't know why this model was so large, but it is. And look please at the butterfly that's held in her hand. Look at her pose of her face is very elegant. And when I turn her around, the hair is what you've got to see. You're noticing the three gilded combs that are set in her hair with the turquoise beads decorating them. And then look at the very, like, four-looped chignon at the top of her head. Extraordinary. I'm going to tip her around and show you from the top so you can see. Oh, let me see. 4 combs, I beg your pardon. I said 3. There are 4 combs, one at the very back as well. by the famous Dresden and Kister firm. Extraordinary doll. This model, known as the lady with the wreath, and again, if you were doing research, I can almost promise you this doll must be based on a painting or a famous person and the pose that they've often struck, because it's so stylized. But notice the detail of the separately little, I use the term Dresden, even though that isn't exactly an accurate term, but it's a term that collectors know, so let's use it. She has this Dresden wreath in her hand. She has the layered Dresden lace on her dress. She has her fingers, her beautifully, elegantly posed fingers, and let me turn her around so you can see the ringlet curls at the back of her head. Aren't they beautiful? Gold bow and feather in her hair. Now, this one coming up. Okay. She loved birds. Look. 1, 2, 3, and then one in her hand. A bird on her shoulder, 2 birds perched in her hair, a bird on her hand. And when I look at her fingers, how they're all individually sculpted. When I turn her around, don't just look at the hair, but look at the defined muscle in her back, the muscle tone. I mean, this is an incredible doll. Incredible half doll. How could it have survived? I just don't see how this could have survived. And her wonderful face. Now, do you think this is based on a painting? Because I am sure it has to be based on a painting, and it's your job to find out. I can't do it all. I need your help. And if you know, please tell me and we'll share it with other people. Notice her hand again extended below her waist. Here's another variation of the doll with the extended arms, very, very extended, in a dancing pose. And notice the really full form of her skirt. So designed to have the pincushion or the tea cozy frame, whatever was applied to this would follow the form of that. So to make sure the costuming is accurate. And I'll turn it around so you can see the back of it now as well. She has double bracelets, 2 bracelets on each arm. She has a little gilt edging, emphasizing it all. And this little guy, okay, he's got to be one of my favorites. If I could pick my top 5, I kind of have to have him up there. I think he is extraordinary. This doll has only been found in 2 variations, let's call it. One with the unpainted cap, unpainted and undecorated cap, and this extraordinarily rare model with the added design of the Dresden flowers on the top, the molded feathers at the side, and the red streamers coming down and tied under his throat. He was made with extra mold because he has this extended length torso, which is very, very rare. I haven't seen it in any other piece. And let me tip it up so you can see the top. And again, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but the muscle tone on these half dolls, I mean, it's just not a flat surface in the back. It's got indentations and muscle tones. It's just wonderful. Now, skipping from babyhood to a woman of some years, we find this gentle-faced grandmother-type person with her benign, smiling expression, her bonneted modesty, her modesty bonnet, her bows, her ringlet curls, her shawls, and holding a little money purse, and with a little money purse on the side. We don't know. She might represent a character from a Dickens figure, or she might be from a painting. And again, it's those of you who love doing research and perhaps know your painting much more than I do, you might be able to identify this figure more. Let's show you the back. And then I'm going to show you, I'm going to tilt it up so you can see her face more clearly, because she does have a wonderful face. Remember we said in 1911 when these half dolls were introduced at the Munich Art Fair was the time that the German art character dolls were being introduced as well. And that whole theme of the character face, character expression was picked up by the half doll makers. And you see this over and over again in these models that are being created. We have another wonderful example here of one of the dolls created with this wide flaring base. Here's the other example that we had. And designed so that the person who was costuming it, whether for a half doll or a tea cozy or whatever purpose, had kind of a form to follow. And notice how many called sew holes, S-E-W, not Soho, but sew holes, are on this one. At the front of them, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they continue around the back. I think there's like 12 sew holes on this particular doll. So designed to whatever it was to be sewn onto, it would be very, very sturdy. And we turn it around. And then when I bring it back, notice details like the blue hair ribbons with the pink tinting as well, not just blue and that's the end of it, but lots of artistic detail. The pink ribbon with the bows on the sleeves, 3 layers of the sleeves, and the curled fingers, and then the wonderfully painted detail of the costume. And I wanted to show you, let me reach over here. Some of these are why I am so certain they're based on paintings, because this theme is so unusual. Why would you have a theme of a little Dutch child holding a basket of fish for a half doll? It kind of doesn't seem like it would be a big seller, does it? So I think that it has to be based on a painting, but at any rate, extremely rare. I don't think it's a boy, I think that's a little girl now that I'm looking at it. Wonderful Dutch cap with wide flaring wings. Again, these had to be put on separately, modeled separately, and then finished off correctly. Arms outstretched, this arm clasping the basket, which is holding 2 floundering fish. Dinner tonight. And we turn it around so you can see the back. And notice again that the arm is extended below the waist. I love that piece. I'd love to know who that was inspired by. And then this lady, don't mess with her. She's holding it off, or is she admiring her ring? That's what we really can't tell. She does have, her fingers are all separately sculpted, and she has a ring modeled on one, and she does appear to be looking at it as, well, is that the one I should choose, or should I choose another? Why she has her hand up on top of her head, we don't know, I guess for balance or pose or whatever, but absolutely wonderful. I'm going to turn it around so you can see her in the back now. And when you looked at her before, I hope you noticed that not only did she have the ring, but she has a very ornate bracelet on her arm. She has a very fancy hat. She has her tumbling curls. Her curl, it begins there and comes around to the front, and then another one down at the front as well. Very superb piece. Let me tilt this up a little. So I think you have to tilt it to really get the full angle of her face. I'm interested to know, those of you who are kind of dyed-in-the-wool half-doll collectors already, how do you choose your half-dolls? What is your purpose? Do you look for a particular face? Is the face important to you? Are you looking for models? If any of you could share with me what the criteria is that drives you, that speaks to you about a piece, I would love to know that. And ending this segment with these 2 wonderful pieces, we'll do the little girl first, because she is so unbearably precious, very, very sweet. Look at the way her hands are modeled. I'm going to tilt it so you can see there's a space between her hands and the front of her bodice. Why was that? Because the manufacturer wanted her to be able to hold a little basket of flowers that would match the flowers in her hair. So the person who bought this, who would take her original pincushion base that came with her and would costume a skirt to go over the top of it, could also then add a little woven basket or a little silk basket as they chose and fill it with little silk flowers that would match the Dresden flowers in her hair. Let me put her here so you can see her a little better. What a sweet face. Inside, she has the Dresden flower on her bodice as well as in her hair, and the flowers are on both sides of her hair. The more when you first look at them, I see one thing, and then I stand there and I stare at it, and I keep seeing more things about each pieces. And this, oh, the piece de resistance, incredible, absolutely incredible piece, a true, magnificent work of art. Not only the posing of the body with really strong features, very, very well-defined, posed fingers, everything about it. But look at details like the three-tiered ruffles on her cap, which also has beautifully modeled draping. The basket, which she is perfectly balancing on her head. Going to market, and perched on the side of the basket is a bird. It almost looked like a butterfly. I think there might be a butterfly inside there too, or green leaves. I can't tell which. But every one of these flower petals was put in separately. This is not something you pour in a mold. Every single piece was done by the artist one by one by one by one. What extraordinary work. Some of them were even peeking out the sides. Look at it again now when I bring it up, and look at how some, they're not just on the top, but some are peeking out the sides of that lattice basket. This is an extraordinary piece. So wonderful in every way. I want to share, this is from the period that I call the 18th century style dolls. But the half doll market also went into another whole category. It's like they skipped a century and they went from 18th century, and now they're going into the Gala 20s, and I'm going to show you those dolls here.